Welcome guys back to Monday's Outlook. I hope you're enjoying the content. If you are, just a request, please drop us a like, subscribe and turn on notifications for future videos. So the first pair we're going to be going over is pound USD. Some interesting things to look at on this chart. We can see the overall market structure at the moment is making lower highs, which is obviously indicating to us a potential sell bias market. Now at the moment we're not able to break this 29.67 level. We have tapped into it on many occasions over the past few months and we have failed to break it, which means price is trading above the structure. But overall we can see the lower highs are being respected. Price is not able to break above previous structure highs, and as of last week, as anticipated, this price structure here at 31.21 held. Price tapped into it, leaving a rejection, and we've had this really strong move to the downside. What I'd like to see moving forward for the rest of the week is how price starts to push and break below this level here. If it does, then what I'll be looking for is just a simple retest of this structure and then a continuation back down to some strong support resistance zones. Looking to the left, we'll be looking at structure lows, and then we'll be looking at areas within that where we can see prices rejected and found support. I mean, if you're entering around these levels, by the time price starts to push down, you'll be able to secure your trade at break even. And obviously have a safe trade. But pound USD has been performing very well in terms of structure and respecting it. So let's see how it performs here at 29.67. If we do get a buy signal, then there's no reason why we can't start to take this buy back up to this resistance zone. Potentially we might have a range before price then pulls back with a slight exhaustion and then has this break to the downside. So let's see how this plays out moving forward next week. We have seen that the dollar has been very strong, but how strong it can last, how long it can last for being strong is obviously a debatable question. But price action is key, so we'll be seeing how price starts to react around this most important level here. The next pair we'll have a look at is New Zealand USD. We can see again last week, this area on the market held as a very strong resistance zone at 67.75. We can see on many occasions prices tried to push into this area and failed to break, leaving really strong rejection wicks. On the final attempt to push into this structure, price just rallied straight off back to the downside, and now you can see prices tapping into a very strong support zone around 66.65. Now again, same thing, if price comes to this level and starts to show signs of support and starts to leave rejections showing signs that price may potentially exhaust before a continuation break to the downside, then this definitely could be a very strong buy zone. If not, then simply what we'll be waiting for is a break of this structure, a clear retest, and then a continuation to the downside. Other than that, it's just a game of waiting. We can see at the moment this has held as a very strong support zone in the past. However, one thing to be mindful of is we do have a huge wick to the downside. Once price came all the way down to this area, immediately it rallied off. So if we're sitting in around buy orders around this level, have to be very careful with ourselves, making sure we have a good risk to reward ratio back to the downside to make sure that by the time price gets into this area here, we've secured our trade at break even so that we're not jeopardizing all of our profits with a huge rejection, this being a potential demand zone. The next pair we'll have a look at is New Zealand CAD. Now again, similar structure. We can see price made a structural high up here. We're making the lower highs with this structure here. And last week we made a double top of this lower high. Very interesting structure, very simple to trade, and we can see prices rally back to the downside. What we are noticing is price is tapping into area for the fourth time. Every time it's tapped into this area, it has rejected. So with this price action around 89.16, it will just be a simple exhaustion for a continuation break, retest, and then continuation back to the downside. If price starts to hold at this level, you want to make sure that you're getting in super tight so that you're not having a big stop loss, because we can see the range from here to here is fairly small. If there is going to be an exhaustion, and this will be the lower high, then you don't want to be in a trade where you're risking 1-to-1. You want to make sure that you're maximizing your potential rewards so you can secure your profits before the drop, if that's what's going to happen. So that being said, be very mindful of wicks, and I've been talking about this for a very long period of time. These are the areas on the market you want to make sure that you're putting your stop loss below so that you're not getting tagged out. And even better, if you are planning to buy this market, you can potentially get in at this wick with a stop loss much deeper. However, price breaking this structure and closing below, it's going to be a big factor in the direction of where this potential market can go. Pound USD, pound yen, apologies, we can see has been phenomenal. Last week we spoke about this double top of this structure and it's done exactly as we anticipated. This rally to the downside was amazing, gave some beautiful sell opportunities, and as you can see, price action just tells us everything. And we can see here 2 days worth of rejection based on previous market structure rejection, and we've had this rally to the downside. Now structures that I'll be looking at moving forward will be the 144.95 area around here. Now I know this is a very strong support zone, and I know at the moment price seems to be starting to range. Now if that's the case, then if this area starts to show signs of support, then I'll definitely be looking to buy this market back to the upside. However, for sell bias opportunities, I'm really going to be waiting for this structure to be broken, a clear retest of this structure, or even better, a break of this structure, retest, and then the continuation to the downside. And while price is ranging, I know this is an accumulation phase, and I know there's obviously no real direction in terms of where the market is going. But I am very interested to see how this buy opportunity presents itself. If there's signals, that's what I'll be doing. If not, I'm just going to be waiting for price to violate, break previous structure lows to indicate bearish pressure, and then looking to sell this market off. Euro yen, we can see also very similar structure, prices ranging at this moment in time. I'm expecting this price to continue pushing to the downside. However, what I do notice is even though price is at a very strong resistance level at 126.79, we do also have a very strong resistance here. Now, to me, the way I think about this on a psychological level is if this price has not collected enough orders at this moment in time and stop losses are above this structure, then potentially we could have a stop hunt before we have the continuation to the downside. What that means for me at this moment in time, there are no sellable opportunities on this market. If price comes back to in and around this resistance level, I'll be making sure that I get a tight enough stop loss to put above this structure. One, so that the stop loss is not too big. And if I'm looking for a reward, I can come down to these support levels at 123.66. And secondly, if price does push up back into this resistance zone at 127.51 and looks for more orders and then drop to the downside, I want to make sure that I'm clear of being hunted out. So as of now, it's a game of patience. If price does not push to the downside, then I'll be mindful that it will potentially come back to these levels here before a drop. There is also one other thing that you have to notice on this market structure. It is stepping up slightly, and we can see higher lows and higher highs being made. However, this is a small exhaustion over based on the overall bigger picture. So I want to see a stronger move to the downside or a stronger move to the upside before I look for any trades. USD JPY has been very, very slow. We are literally just moving in a sideways moving market. And I'm very hesitant about trading this pair at the moment because I know that the overall sentiment of retail traders are selling this market. Makes a load of sense as to why we are at a very strong daily resistance level. However, if everybody's selling, then the banks are not going to allow that to happen. So I'm going to be looking for a false breakout of this structure for a stop loss hunt. Then I'm going to be looking for signs of rejection before a potential continuation to the downside. And that's all I'm waiting for on UJ. Other than that, if price does continue to push down, I'm viewing this as a ranging market. It's just going to be a simple break, retest, continuation before I look to get in any trades of this structure. Aussie dollar USD has performed extremely well. As you can see in the past, we have 3 days worth of rejection at this level, 71.98. Price come back into this level. We've had 1, 2, and then 3 days worth of rejection. Price literally came back to the wicks of these previous candles, and now we can see the market pushing to the downside. At the moment, price is in the middle of nowhere, which means there's no trade for me, but I will be monitoring how price comes back down to the support zone. Looking for buys, I don't think that I'll be doing it. Price has come to this level on many occasions, and what I noticed on this pair is that once price came to this support zone, it sat on it for a very long period of time, meaning that the buy orders are potentially depleting from this area. So what I'm going to be looking for is to see how this bearish movement continues to the downside, see if we get this break, potential retest / lower high formed before a continuation to the downside. The next pair we look at is the dollar index. As expected last week, we can see price has found huge support in and around the 96.83 level. Now price consolidated for a period of time last week, bouncing up and down, respecting these levels in and around here. There were some great trading opportunities between this range, but it's fairly messy. So the best thing to do is just to see how price starts to react at major levels. Now we can see this is a major area on this market. We can see prices now starting to reject it. However, as far as I'm concerned, looking at this structure, price is now in the middle of nowhere. The best option for me personally is to see how price comes back to this resistance zone, to see if we get this final drop to the downside. And if not, then I'm simply just going to wait for price to break this strong support zone that it's failed to do so on many occasions. Then I'll just look for the retest and the continuation back to the downside around 95.79, where price has found previous support. This is a strong support zone. This is a very strong resistance zone. And in terms of patience, I think it's better exercise than not, because at the moment, the dollar index is doing a whole heap of stuff, and I really don't want to be on the wrong side of that. Looking at gold, very interesting. Last week, we had some great sellable opportunities on this pair. What I love about this structure is we have the left shoulder of this market. Here we have the head of this market. And then now we have the left shoulder of this market. We finally have this break of the neckline, and this is a potential retest of this structure. For me personally, what I prefer to see on this structure is price showing signs of strong bearish momentum, then coming back to structure before we have the sell-off to the downside. So if price starts to reject this level and starts to push to the downside, I can confidently say that the bears are in control of the market. All I'm going to be patiently waiting for is for this structure low to be broken, see price make a new lower low. Then I'm going to be looking for the retest lower high of the structure before the continuation. If that's going to be the case, we have a lot of room to the downside, a lot of blank canvas to fill, and I think this would be a good tradable market moving forward for the next 4 days. Swiss franc yen again was another phenomenal pair to trade last week, especially for some of the members in the community. Some brilliant sell opportunities up and around 11.92. We could see price came back to make a triple top of this level, and when it did, it just fell back to the downside. Very safe trade above stop loss above market structure, and then a nice rally to the downside. The risk to reward ratio on this trade was huge. What I'll be looking for moving forward is to see how price starts to react in and around these levels here. We can see that this is a very strong resistance / support zone. We have lots of resistance here, support here. We had a gap down of this market, and the market filled it. So I'm not really looking at this market structure, but I can see now price is sitting in and around this level. What I'll be looking for is for a continued bearish momentum on this market with a slight pullback exhaustion and then a continuation back to the downside. Euro USD last week performed well also. We can see very strong resistance level here around 13.20. Price tapped into this level a few days last week and then finally fell off to the downside. What I'll be looking for on this market is this exhaustion phase that's happening right now, and I'll just be looking for the continuation back to the downside. In terms of tradable opportunities, if price presents itself and starts to show signs of exhaustion in and around these wick areas here, looking to the left, see price tapping into the support / resistance zone, then I'll potentially look to sell the market back to the downside. You'll be able to get a safe stop loss on this, and if you're anticipating the lower low of the structure being formed, then you can safely have your stop loss above the market structure and look for this good risk to reward ratio back to the downside. EuroCAD at the moment is not on my watch list, but I have analyzed it, and while price is in the middle of nowhere, I don't think I'll be looking for any tradable opportunities. However, what I've noticed about this structure is that price hasn't really tapped into any previous / resistance zones in the past. We do have an area here where price has tapped twice, maybe looking for the third tap for this triple top, and most definitely if price comes back down to the support zone, which I'll class as a demand zone, we'll definitely be looking for buy opportunities. So right now, patience is the name of this game with this pair, and I'll be looking to see how price comes back into this resistance zone / support zone, looking for potential buys and sells at these levels. Aussie dollar, New Zealand dollar, we can see this huge push to the upside, and what really fascinates me about this market, I mean, price presents itself with a potential sell opportunity now, but personally I'd want to see price come back into these resistance zones to see how they play out, and also I'd like to see how price starts to react back at the support zone. If this is a break of this structure, then a potential retest here around 0.6949. However, what I do notice with this price action is price is continuing to push up. And what you notice is there's no exhaustion of this market. So if it is planning to continue to go up, we need this exhaustion to happen at one point or another. So what I'm anticipating is if this exhaustion phase happens and price starts to present itself with a buy opportunity in and around these support/resistance areas, then I'll definitely be looking to buy this market back up these strong resistance zones up here. Euro Aussie dollar performing beautifully. We can see we've had this huge push to the downside. At this point in time, this looks like an exhaustion phase at a very strong support zone. In terms of buying sell opportunity, there's a bit too much noise to the left. I do notice a very strong /resistance support zone. So what I'll be looking for is to see how price comes back into this level here. Now, if this holds as a very strong resistance zone, then I will be anticipating this lower low to be formed of this structure. I don't really see this as a very strong support zone per se. If price starts to fail in and around here, then I can confidently say that I could have a very safe stop loss above market structure and comfortably go for the lower low of this structure at around 1 to 3 risk to reward ratio. But right now, I'm only going to be setting an alarm to see how price starts to react in and around these resistance zones. If not, then I'll just be holding off from this market until price comes back into strong resistance, or if price breaks this structure, given a nice retest and a continuation to the downside. Euro pound is now coming into a very interesting resistance zone at 86.78. I am a bit skeptical about where I've put my resistance, but I'll just be mindful of that, watching price action to see how it starts to reject. Looking a bit further up, we can see we have 1, 2, 3, 4 days worth of information showing that this is a very strong supply zone around 87.16. When prices come into this level, we see it's just tanked. If price is now in a phase of coming back to collect orders, as we may have a lot of retail sellers around this area, then I'd like to see price slightly break this level and then look for the drop back to the downside. That's my safest option with this pair. At the moment, I don't see this as a strong resistance level, especially with these wicks, so I won't be selling this market. I will see how it breaks above, and only for buy opportunities, which I won't be enticed to get into until we have the break of this structure and a potential continuation to the upside. So at the moment, again, patience is the name of this game. Level to hold. The final pair we're looking at is USD CAD, and we can see at the moment price is in the middle of nowhere. I love trading this pair, but at the moment it's not presenting itself any great opportunities. Last week, some members absolutely killed this market, selling and buying from support and resistance. There were some great opportunities to be taken. Now that price has tapped into this level so many times, I don't see it as a resistance level. So what I'll be interested to see is how price comes back to these resistance levels around 35.56 and how price starts to push back to the downside, potentially breaking 32.71. As of now, it's a game of patience also. So what I'll be looking for is to see how price pushes back into these resistance zones and then look at this risk to reward ratio to the downside. The range is huge. The potential is just there. Safe stop loss above market structure. And this is the trades that I'll be hunting for. So I hope you guys have enjoyed the analysis. We'll be back at it again next week, Monday. But as of now, have a great trading week. And until then, take care.